Hey there, Robert John Hadfield here again from Audiomover, and I've got something so cool to show you today. This album, whether you've heard of them or not, this actual album, the vinyl, is one of the coolest records that you'll ever see. They did something with it that very few bands ever did, and they were one of the first that ever actually did this, and I'm going to show it to you here in a second. It's actually on the vinyl, and it's really cool. Now this band, Split Enz, you know, who were they? Well, you actually know some music, not necessarily from this album, but some music that came from one of the guys in this band, and I'll tell you about that in just a second, because there's really interesting history here. So what happened was there was this guy by the name of Tim Finn, and he's from New Zealand, and he started this band called Split Enz, and this was back in the early 70s. And they put out several different albums. This one was their fifth album. And somewhere before this album, Tim's younger brother, Neil, a guy named Neil Finn, joined this band. And he's the one that wrote the one song on this album that you would probably be familiar with. And the song is called I Got You. And the part that you would recognize, there was this one little catchy part in the song that says, I don't know why sometimes I get frightened. You recognize that? Anyway, that was from this album. And this was their fifth studio album, and this was actually the first time that they really got any sort of recognition, that anybody knew who they were. And it was because of that song. It was the first time they'd really had kind of a hit. And so the band was started by a guy named Tim Finn, and then his younger brother, Neil, joined the band, and then Neil's the one that actually wrote that song. And it turns out he was a great songwriter, and you'll know a little bit more about that here in just a second. So when Tim ended up leaving the group, and then Neil, the younger brother, kind of kept it going until it broke up, and then Neil Finn, the guy that wrote the song I just sang to you, went on to form another band that you have definitely heard their music before. And here's one of the songs. There is freedom within, there is freedom without. You remember that song? Hey now, don't dream it's over. That was Crowded House, and that was the band that Neil Finn, the guy that wrote this other song, the younger brother, he wrote that song. He's the one that started Crowded House, and that was his song. There was another one that was a hit song from that band too that you'll recognize. Love will make you weep, make you run for cover. Something so strong will carry us away. Remember that song? Anyway, Neil Finn. This guy was he really was a great songwriter. And if you go back and actually just go on YouTube and look for some of his stuff, and just everything he did, it was just nice. It was easy to listen to. It was just great music. Anyway, so Neil Finn was the one that wrote the hit song off this album, and this is the one that got them the first real commercial appeal. Now, what's really cool about this, like I said, is I'll show you when we get inside, but I really like this album cover, because they actually, when they made this album, I don't know how many, but they went through a whole bunch of different versions of this album, and I'm not sure, but it seems like another color combination or two might have actually had some short releases. But this was the one that was, released on a mass scale. What's kind of cool is that when you look at it here, in kind of an obscure way, it says Split. The name of the band is Split Enz, and you can kind of see the E and the N and the Z right there. I just thought that was kind of neat how they did that. You'll also see my Angelo's CDs sticker right there. When I was in Denver a couple of weeks ago, I walked into Angelo's, which is on Broadway in Denver, Colorado. And I walked in there, and this was on their, new arrivals, used records that had just come in. And I saw it, and I thought, maybe they don't realize what they have. Because usually you'd spend a little bit more because this is kind of a unique album. It was only $8. So anyway, I love Angelo's. There's a couple of different record stores in Denver, and Angelo's I stop in often and buy records there. It's a great place. So anyway, it's a really cool cover. Let's flip it over here. So on the back side, you have the continuation of the kind of the little cool little artsy look that they have here. And then here's your song list. And then you see you've got I Got You. That's the one that I was just telling you about. And I'll be really honest with you, I don't know any other songs on this album. That was the one that I'm familiar with, and that was, once again, that was the one that really put him on the map. Now, you'll see here, down here, it says Tim Finn, vocals, Neil Finn, guitar. Tim was the older brother, and Neil Finn was the younger brother. But Neil Finn, like I said, is the one that he really went on to be the songwriter. And the stuff that he came up with just throughout his career has been really amazing. Speaking of that, after he had Crowded House, he actually went and put some albums out, which is him and his brother, and I think they called it the Finn Brothers or something like that. That's some really nice music together. And then a few years ago, Neil actually went and played a tour with Fleetwood Mac. Okay, so let's open this thing up and see what it looks like on the inside. The album's called True Colors, and then of course they have, like a lot of bands will have some cool pictures. I always preferred it when they would have, of course I did, where they'd have some pictures or something on the inside, because this was all part of the experience of records. Was when you put the music on, it gave you something to interact with, to look at, and it helped in weird ways bring the music to life, looking at the pictures. And this is kind of cool how they laid this stuff out. I believe that's the one side, this is the other side. I believe, I could be wrong, somebody that's a big Crowded House Split Enz fan can correct me, but I believe this one's Neil Finn here. And anyway, so they just had pictures of the band on the inside, but here is where it gets really, really cool. When I pull this record out, there's something like super amazing about this, and I want you to see this. Okay, so there's side A. I'm going to look up here and see if you can see that. Take a look at that. Is that cool or what? They did this really interesting etching in the vinyl. And it's really neat. And like I said, not a lot of bands ever did this. One of the other ones I can think of that did this was Styx in Paradise Theater. And I'll do a video on that record sometime so you can see that one. But what they did, and this is similar to what they did with Paradise Theater, is they put all the track information on the one side, and then when you flip it over, this label's just completely black. And it's almost like, and Styx did that too, it's almost like they wanted you to make sure that you noticed. Because I've talked to a lot of people, especially that had the Styx album, and it was interesting how many of us that had those albums didn't even notice it at first. We just threw the record on and just started listening to it, didn't think anything of it, and then we're kind of looking over at the record and it looks dirty, like what's on the record? And then you get up closer and you go, oh, whoa, there's something on it. And that's, and it's almost like they wanted, they made these black labels to bring your attention to, hey, there's something on here that you need to check out. But isn't that cool? And you can see here, I don't know if you can tell in the picture, but it says split right there. There's colors right there. See if I can move that around so you can see the words. So they actually then had not just the shapes, but they put there's true and ends. Anyway, isn't that pretty awesome? This etching was something that, unfortunately, maybe it was too expensive. I mean, who knows? I imagine it was probably pricey. That not a lot of people did. But this was. I've talked about this in so many other videos. This was part of the immersive experience of vinyl. You would buy records and you'd have so many kind of interesting things would come, almost like Easter eggs. The things you would find as you were going along the way, and you'd start making all these connections between, wait, this guy's that guy from there, and having that fully immersive experience with the music, where it's not just listening to music. You're actually having this tactile experience. It's visual. When you'd open up a brand new record, there was a smell that came with it too. So it was this fully immersive experience, multi-sensory experience. Records were, and I don't want to sound like an old man. Well, back in the old days, but really, today we miss out on that. That music was something that it was a fully immersive experience. And this was just another example of what that was like. we would have these art. It were these amazing artistic experiences that we would have with these musical artists. Anyway, that's Split Enz True Colors, and a little bit about Crowded House, who for sure you've heard of before. And so, anyway, if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. And leave some comments. If you have any other records you want us to look at, we've got thousands of them. I have several thousand records in the front office of the Audiomover studio. And by the way, at Audiomover, we take old audio and videotapes and we convert them to digital. So if you have old audio or videotapes, or if you know somebody that does, because you probably do, let them know about us and send them to audiomover.com, where they can start an order and preserve their old media, their old audio and videotapes. Anyway, with that, have a fantastic day.